Here I have Debbie Reynolds, the Data Diva from Debbie Reynolds Consulting once again. Probably vastly my superior on data privacy law, and on this particular issue in particular, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Schrems decision. And the Schrems decision is interesting to me as a guy on the street because people had a legal reason why they were allowed to do something, and it got taken away, and they're still doing it. And maybe nobody knows what's going to happen. Is that roughly correct, Debbie?
That is so correct. You don't need me. You have all the answers here.
Well, we got to fill up this video. So tell us a little bit, like what might happen with, and maybe to recap, there was a legal framework called Privacy Shield. Companies like Facebook use it as a rationale for moving data out of Europe to the United States. And Schrems 2 is this legal ruling, you can't do that anymore. But it hasn't decided what you can do and why. So people are in limbo. How's this limbo likely to evolve? What should people do to handle the situation?
Yeah. So I'll just briefly talk about Schrems 2. So there was a Schrems 1 as well that had almost the same effect, which Schrems 1 invalidated the safe harbor agreement, which was the predecessor to the Privacy Shield, and Schrems 2 invalidated the Privacy Shield. So basically what a Privacy Shield is a legal basis for data to move from the EU to the US, and it gave the US was considered adequacy with the EU. So if companies from the US were transferring data from the EU to the US and they used Privacy Shield, that was sort of a blanket, way to say, if we follow these rules, we are adequate, so that we can move data around without doing any other things. So Privacy Shield, in my view, is more of a fire hose of data moving around. So once the Privacy Shield got invalidated, it's more of a trickle of data, or should be. So the invalidation said that the U.S. is no longer adequate in terms of data protection when data transfers from the U.S. to the EU, and that companies need to find another legal basis to be able to transfer data and also apply adequate additional safeguards. So one of that adequate additional safeguards is using contracts that have standard contract clauses. So standard contract clauses are pre-approved clauses from the EU that we use in contracts about data transfer. These clauses, you cannot change them. You have to put them in the contract as is, but you can still add additional information to the contract to say how the data controller or processor will handle the data. It's challenging because now companies are very much in limbo. The Privacy Shield was invalidated immediately, which meant, in theory, companies are supposed to stop right then transferring data, even though I don't see that happening.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. So if you, especially this in my head makes sense for smaller companies, especially if you have particular partners, you're doing particular things with your data, the natural route is to do these standard contract clauses, and Privacy Shield was always a tool for just moving a ton of data wholesale without any specific presumption about what you were going to do with it. Is that roughly correct?
Yeah, that's pretty correct. Yes, absolutely.
So, and then for the kind of larger, Facebook crowd who really is looking for that fire hose, how do you expect this situation might evolve? So Facebook's kind of in trouble now, in a sort of limbo, but they're still doing what they've always done. What might happen next and why? Can you provide any insights there?
Well, the EU is threatening to force Facebook to stop all data transfer from the EU to the US. They're in negotiations with the EU so that won't happen. They want to be able to find other methods. There are basically six different legal bases for moving data, and I'm sure that most corporations use much of all of them, as many of them as possible, like, performance of a contract, legal claims, even though that's more like within the EU. Binding corporate rules is an alternative as well, but it's not a good immediate alternative because, first of all, it's about exchanging data multinationally within a corporation, and it takes a long time. It has to be pre-approved, so it may take you like 5 years to get binding corporate rules approved.
Oh, wow.
So that's not going to help you today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have a new framework and destroy it in 5 years, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is really a tough question. So the both the safe harbor and the privacy shield were invalidated for, lack of redress for EU individuals, the incongruity of the surveillance laws that we have here in the US as
Yeah.
opposed to the EU, and Edward Snowden with these the allegations about Prism and stuff like that. So none of those things changed between the time that the safe harbor was invalidated and the privacy shield went into effect, and then it was invalidated again. So I don't know if they have a third try at adequacy. I'm not sure what needs to be contained in that agreement because none of those things have changed on the US side.
Yeah, and one final question. I guess there's this Herb Cohen negotiating book, The Three Poles of Negotiation. One of them is time. Forget about what. When is something likely to happen? What are the pressures the different actors see to eventually make something happen versus just letting limbo continue forever, if you will?
Well, there's a lot of geopolitical stuff around the privacy shield. So, the U.S. Wilbur Ross said the U.S. has $7 trillion worth of commerce between the U.S. and the EU. There's
Yeah, big
Brexit.
time.
There's Brexit where they're trying to figure themselves out. They're doing deals like they did a deal with a commerce deal with Japan recently. They're looking to be more independent on the financial side of things. So who knows if they'll create a deal with the U.S. about adequacy, and then the election. So the
Mm.
Privacy Shield went into effect in 2016, and the reason a lot of people think it went into effect, it was sort of a band aid to, like let's smooth things over for now, and then we'll see how the next administration handles these things. And apparently, it didn't get handled the way they thought it would because it just got invalidated this year. So those things all play into how this will play out, and a lot of it is around commerce, not really privacy.
Yeah, that's something I hear a lot, that these things go in the sauce with a lot of other gripes and become a general diplomatic and geopolitical football. So that sounds familiar. Well, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much once again for your insights, Debbie, the Data Diva. Always great talking to you. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.